Banks is recognized.
Secretary Pompeo, I'm not sure the world has ever experienced...
Questions for the record will be considered.
Secretary Pompeo, I'm not sure the world has ever experienced the American foreign policy whiplash from peace through strength, the swagger of the Trump-Pompeo approach, to the weakness and appeasement that we see coming from the current administration. Why did Putin wait for you and President Trump to leave office before he invaded Ukraine?
It's good to see you again. Look, I try to take a fact-based approach to these things. I often get asked, would these things have happened if you all were still there? I avoid answering those. I can only articulate that they did not. I can only articulate that Putin decided that it was not a wise time to invade Ukraine while we were there, and then shortly thereafter began to continue his effort to take more of Ukraine. He took a fifth of Ukraine under President Obama, 0% during our time, and then went at it again. In the end, Putin didn't change. Putin's been the same guy since he was a young KGB officer. His desire for greater Russia is deep and embedded in his DNA. The only thing that stops these bad actors from roaming free around the world is an America prepared to respond in a way that puts more costs on them than the benefits of action.
So fast forward, last weekend, 3 of our American heroes were killed by a drone operated by the Houthis. What would have been the swift, appropriate reaction to hold those accountable for killing our American heroes?
It's hard to know, Congressman, exactly the response at an operational level that we would have taken. Deterrence is always temporary. It's one of the things I reminded everyone in the administration. When you have deterrence for a moment, you can squander it so quickly. And frankly, that's what has happened. We've lost that moment. By the way, we had risk too. There were rounds fired at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad when I was a Secretary of State. We armed the damn thing to the teeth to protect our young men and women who were there, military and diplomatic women that were in that facility. And then when we were beginning to have deterrence slip, we took a strike on General Soleimani that restored that very deterrence for a time, for a period. I think the Trump administration would have recognized long ago, this would have been before October 7th, that you can't negotiate with the Ayatollah. You can't release sanctions and allow them to grow their foreign exchange reserves from $4 billion to over $50 or $60 billion. That money will be used for terror, and this is now the risk that we have in the escalations taking place as a result of the United States and our allies and partners having lost that deterrent capability, and will.
Secretary Pompeo, you notably warned our nation's governors about not getting too entwined and entangled with the Chinese Communist Party, as many of them did. As Washington becomes more aware of the China threat, the CCP has targeted many of our state's governors. This morning, the Washington Post published a story about the CCP's United Front efforts amping up their engagement with our nation's mayors, including the mayor of Carmel, Indiana, in my state, the former mayor, he just left office, who went on lavish trips to China and engaged at a high level with Chinese officials in their country. Why should our nation's mayors stray away from these types of entanglements with the sister cities projects and other CCP United Front efforts?
You know, Congressman Banks, it's in some ways parallel to what we were talking about in Africa, right? The Chinese Communist Party will always show up at people's doors with things that feel good. The remarks I made to the National Governors Association, I had to run through a State Department roadblock to make those remarks. It was hard for even the State Department to see this threat, not just at the federal level, but this was to a series of governors. And I now remind people, the Chinese Communist Party is showing up at school board meetings. They're showing up at city council meetings and county commission meetings all across America. In your state, Chairman Gallagher, in Wisconsin, they made a hard play for your state legislative body. They are determined to propagate their efforts. They want to make friends so that when they're confronted, they can turn to their friends and say, we're not such bad guys after all. The Chinese Communist Party is truly evil. They will work at every level of government. They will work against our private sector as well. They'll show up at PTA meetings if that's what it takes. This is an effort at every level for the Chinese Communist Party to have a capacity to influence our government.
Can you expand on why the Sister Cities program is so dangerous?
When the Chinese Communist Party shows up at your school and offers a free swing set, it is not because they care about the health of your children. That's maybe the simplest way to articulate Sister Cities programs and the Confucius Institutes and all of these United Front efforts inside of our country. They may show up and give you some temporary lift, but in the end, it is about them, not about us.
Mr. Khanna.
Back.